So that's going to be considered. It's not in the screen. Never is.
Right now, thank you. Thank you, councillors. I'd like to welcome councillors and staff to this meeting of Glamorgan Springbank Council on Tuesday, the 25th of July. I declare the meeting open at 2:01 p.m. Glamorgan Springbank Council acknowledge and pays respects to the Tasmanian Aboriginal people as traditional and original owners and the continuing custodians of this land on which we gather, and acknowledge their elders, past and present. All councillors are present today. At agenda item 1.3, there are no apologies. There will be a late agenda item in relation to leave of absence. Agenda item 1.4, in attendance in the chamber today, we have Ms. Elise Blaine, the Director of Corporate and Community, Mr. James Bonner, who is the Senior Planner and current Acting Director, Planning and Development, and Mrs. Jasmine Kerr, our Executive Officer, and our General Manager, Mr. Greg Ingham. Mr. Peter Porch, who has an agenda item, is an apology today due to unforeseen personal circumstances. So I do have an agenda item, a late report, which General Manager, I understand, was not available when the agenda was released. So we would need. Thank you, Councillor Woods.
Thank you, Mayor. The council accept the late report item, General Manager's performance review, as late confidential agenda item 2.3.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder, please? Councillor Churchill, thank you. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Thank you. The motion's carried unanimously. Agenda item 1.6 is declaration of interest or conflict. As chair, I now request elected members to indicate whether they have any interest personally or via a close associate as defined in section 49 of the Local Government Act 1993, or 2, any conflict as described in Council's Code of Conduct for councillors in any item included in the agenda. Deputy Mayor?
8.3. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Agenda item 2 is the ordinary meeting of council on the 27th of June. There is a recommendation on page 6. Councillor McQueenie, thank you.
I move that the minutes of the ordinary meeting of council held on Tuesday, 27th June 2023
at 2 p.m. be confirmed as a true and correct record.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder, please? Councillor Young, thank you. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? Motion is carried. Thank you. Agenda item 2.2 is the special meeting of council on the 6th of July. There is a recommendation on page 7. Councillor Woods, thank you.
I move that the minutes of the special meeting of council held on 6th of July 2023 at 2 p.m. be confirmed as a true and correct record.
Do I have a seconder, please? Councillor McQueenie, thank you. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? The motion is carried. Thank you. Agenda item 2.3 is the date and purpose of workshops held. There is a recommendation on page 8. Councillor McQueenie, thank you.
I note that council, I move that council notes the information.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Churchill, thank you. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? Councillor Edwards, you are for the motion?
Yeah.
Thank you. The motion's carried. Thank you. Public question time is agenda item 3. I understand there are no questions on notice. Questions without notice, General Manager, please. Are there any?
There's no questions without notice.
No questions without notice. Lovely. Thank you. There are no reports in the Planning Authority. So we'll move to agenda item 5. 5.1 is the financial report for the period ending June 2023. There is a recommendation on page 12. Councillor Young, thank you.
I move the council receives and notes the interim financial reports as attached to
report referred to in the agenda for the period ending 30 June 2023.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Churchill, thank you. Councillor Young, do you wish to speak to the
I
motion?
reserve my right to reply.
Thank you. Do I have any other speakers in relation to Councillor Woods? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Sorry, my agenda seems to be a little bit untidy today.
That's all right.
I have two questions with regards to the financials, and I'm happy to be shown and corrected wrong, but where in the financials can we see the COVID loan? In the ones that we provided with?
General Manager.
I'll defer to the Director of Corporate in regards to that. Explain.
Thank you, Ms. Blaine.
Madam Mayor, the loan is captured in the balance sheet as a liability with the other loans. So it's just an account that captures all the loans. So there's two, they're split between current and non-current. So depending on when they're due.
Is that in the profit and loss or statement of cash flows?
The statement of financial position.
There it is, yeah. So it's in the what did you say? It was in the loans?
Yes.
In there.
Through you, Madam Mayor. So just for clarification, Ms. Blaine, that would be in the interest-bearing loans and borrowings.
That's correct.
Yep.
Yeah.
So the line at the bottom, councillor of liabilities.
Thank you. The one that's 2,077,666.
That's right. Because it's due for repayment in this financial year, it's in that line and not the non-current line further down.
My other question is through you, Madam Mayor, to Ms. Blaine, if I may. In the financials, where can we find the line item for the Spring Bay Independent Living Units financials cashback reserve account? Is that in here?
So again, they're in the statement of financial position.
Okay.
And they're in the equity section at the bottom. Restricted reserves.
Down the bottom. Yep, thank you very much. Thanks for that.
Thank you, Ms. Blaine. Thank you, Councillor Woods. Are there any other questions in relation to finances? Nothing further? Put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? Motion's carried unanimously. Thank you. We'll move to agenda item 6. 6.1 is the Tasmanian Seafarers Memorial Committee minutes. There is a recommendation on page 14. Councillor Young, thank you.
I move that the minutes of the Tasmanian Seafarers Committee meeting held 24 March 2023 be received and noted.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder, please? Councillor Edwards, thank you. Put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? Motion's carried. Thank you. Commissioner Hall Committee minutes, the 16th of May. The recommendation is on page 17. Councillor Woods, thank you.
Thank you. I'll move that the minutes of the Bicheno Memorial Hall Committee meeting held on the 16th of May 2023 be received and noted.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder, please? Councillor McQueenie, thank you. Any questions, any comments? I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? Motion's carried. Thank you. Agenda item 7 of the information reports. There is a report from the Director of Works and Infrastructure, Mr. Peter Porch. As I said earlier, Mr. Porch is an apology due to unforeseen personal circumstances. So if you have any questions on that particular agenda item, you might direct them to the General Manager, and the recommendation is on page 23. Councillor Young, thank you.
I move that the council notes the information
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Churchill, thank you. Are there any questions for the General Manager to take on notice for Mr. Forge? Councillor Woods, thank you.
Thank you. I have one question and one comment on page 21 with the comparisons 2021, 22 and 22, 23 with the mowing and slashing. It will be my comment is it will just be interesting to see how this trends with the cessation of some of our mowing services. Is that one? And also on page 23 under plant and vehicles, Swansea team ute replacement by 4 quotes received for each. Is this due to the recent break-in at the depot, and is that covered by insurance?
General
Through
Manager.
you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, thank you for your question, councillor. It does relate to the loss of 2 vehicles. I think I may have, through that break-in at the Swansea depot, I think I may have informed council that quite a few weeks ago that we did recover 1 of those utes. We have since recovered the second one, or the police have recovered the second one. We're still dealing with the insurance matter because there's items, there's a spray unit item that is missing off that second vehicle. So it is still being dealt with by insurance, but that ute is to replace one of those utes that were taken because it was at its end of its life, if you like, anyway. And quite frankly, we need to replace it. So,
Yep.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Has there been
Councillor Woods?
a catching of the culprits?
do
the cameras and stuff work at the depot?
Yeah, Councillor Edwards, unfortunately, we don't have CCTV at the depot, but it's something we've spoken about getting. This incident has highlighted the need there. It seems as if one of the vehicles was used for other nefarious activities in and around Hobart, but that's all I could probably say at this point. Yep.
Okay.
Councillor McQueenie.
Yeah, just to foreshadow for Peter, or if you can, General Manager, the Spring Beach public toilet refurbishment. So 2 things. It talks about the next stage of works, just what exactly that is, and also the ablution strategy that was to be developed. Have we got a time frame for that?
Well, the Spring Beach toilet, that's just work that's currently on the go. So it's renewal work. That's what
Okay.
you're talking about.
So it's
Sorry, what was your second question?
And there was mention a couple of meetings ago, I think, of an ablution strategy that we were going to do for the municipality.
Yes, yes. So there is a how can I put this? A strategic overview of all of our ablutions across the municipality that we are undertaking, and that's to look at where the need is, what the need is. So a condition assessment on each ablution.
Yeah.
And that will be able to inform our ongoing budgets as to, we'll have to prioritize works, but that'll be able to inform our ongoing budgets. There's some ablution blocks that we recognise right now, if we had the funding, we would like to renew or at least replace. There's others that are in fairly good condition, and obviously they would be further down the list, but that work is underway. It's a condition assessment.
And have we got an expected ETA on?
We'll definitely have it complete before the next budget deliberations, but I suspect a lot earlier than that we can actually start doing the high priority work
Okay.
as and when funding is available.
Thank you. Councillor Young.
Through you, Madam Mayor. I asked the General Manager if he could raise with Mr. Porch. Does the ablution strategy have as one of its major considerations the making of the access to the ablutions such that disabled people can use them? You need an answer now. I'd just like to know.
No,
If we have a strategy, maybe it's in it. If not, perhaps it should be.
Through you, Madam Mayor, any new build that we do today around ablutions absolutely has to consider accessibility. So that is just normal practice today. It was not so many years ago, but it's certainly the case today.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? Councillor Edwards?
It's for you, Madam Mayor. Just a quick update on the triangle. Is there any vision triangle? And is the DA, it's not on here, but the DA with the helipad, so is that in Swansea, are those two in progress or not in progress?
So through Madam Mayor, the triangle project went back to the designer, as you as council is aware, to see if we could if he could look at the scope again to see if we can make some modifications to fit within the budget. He's done that. The revised drawings are back with us, and I think the Director of Works and Infrastructure informed that it's we can go to tender now.
Oh, good.
Yep.
Are there any other questions or any other comments on the Director's report? Nothing further?
Sorry, Madam Mayor. if I may.
no.
That project is an example of the question that Councillor Young just asked around accessibility. That's an example of a project where accessibility is very much part of the design.
Thank you. On that basis, I will put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? Motion's carried unanimously. Thank you. Agenda item 7.2 is the report of Mr. Alex Woodward, the Director of Planning and Development. I note Mr. Woodward is currently on annual leave and Mr. James Bonner is acting in that role. There is a recommendation on page 26. Councillor Churchill, thank you.
And then the council receives and notes the report on the activities in the Planning and Development Directorate.
Thank you. Seconded, Councillor Woods. Thank you. Any questions on this? Councillor McQueenie, then Councillor Young. Thank you.
Yeah, through you, Madam Mayor, to the General Manager, I think. With the dog management, so the animal control report and the discussions of which I'm a member of the dog management committee, the issue of start of bird nesting season and control of dogs has been repeatedly raised. What we do at that point to actually both inform but also compliance with the change that occurs around dog access. So I appreciate that Mr. Woodward's away, but that sort of September timeframe, which is what it is, have we done some preparation for some intense resourcing or not around that initiation of the nesting season?
Is it something you can answer, General Manager? Or
Yeah, I can answer that through you, Madam Mayor. The our resources in regards to compliance in that space don't necessarily increase. We have a dog management officer, as you're aware. It's a matter of diverting at the change of seasons and the bird breeding increase. It's a matter of re-diverting his attention to those areas that we know need attention. So it's not so much getting additional resources in, it's a matter of refocusing on those areas. The same rules apply under the Dog Control Act and our dog management in terms of dogs awful on leashes at certain times, no dogs at all times, all those rules apply. But in areas, for example, the Orford foreshore and the bird sanctuary there, that would become a greater focus for us over that period, generally over the summer months.
Councillor Young.
I note in the attachments to the Director of Planning and Development report, there are a list of planning matters as at the 10th of July and their status. There are 2 that were refused that went on an appeal and thus were approved. I'd like to know what costs were awarded against council, if any, in respect of the 2 approvals when that were granted, even though council refused the development, and also what costs the council has incurred in going to appeal in respect of not just those that have changed council's decision, but incurred in going to appeal anyway. Now, it's not something that the general manager or the planner, Mr. Bonner, would know offhand, but I'd like an answer to the question at some stage on formal response. Thank
If
you.
you are amenable to the suggestion that we'll take that on notice now, councillor Young.
I'd be happy to be on notice. I can't expect an immediate answer.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Madam Mayor. Yeah.
Mr. Bonner, did you wish to comment at all on councillor Young's question? I'm happy to take any comment from you.
Thank you, Matt. Through you, Matt. I suppose clarification from councillor Young as to which applications he was referring to.
Is it
There's a
Mr.
schedule at the back that says
I'm aware of
status,
that.
and it says refused by council and what the end result was.
Yeah.
And two of those that were refused were in the end were approved after the application was dealt with
Mr. Bonner,
in
I
a
wonder if
tribunal.
councillor Young and Mr. Bonner, I wonder if I could make the suggestion that councillor Young speak to you out of session, and he can then get the answers to the questions that he has. And you might like to share the answer by email to the rest of the council.
I'd like a formal answer so I could be noted
Sure, yes, but
for the next council meeting, perhaps.
to enable Mr. Bonner to do that, councillor Young, I wonder if you would meet with him out of session and work through what your
Mr. Bonner, I'll
questions
be here
are.
tomorrow if you want to tap me on the brain for that.
Thank you. Thank you for that.
If I may
Councillor
add to that,
Woods?
yeah, it's on page 10 of the attachments.
I'm sorry, I should have said it.
Are there any other,
I stand rebuked.
are there any other questions? Councillor McQueenie, then councillor Luck.
Apologies, Mayor, I should have asked this when I had the first call. Through you, Mayor, to the General Manager again. On page 25, under planning, the reference is made to the structure plans work that's going to commence.
Yep.
Just wondering if we can have a sense of the timeframes of that, because there are items that might, like uses of parks and community expectations and etc., that it might be useful to understand when those sort of discussions will be happening in each of the 4 places.
Through you, Madam Mayor. I can confirm that we have a preferred supplier, if you like, someone that's very skilled in undertaking these sorts of structure plans within Tasmania.
Yep.
The critical thing for us has been their availability to do the work. So we're working around their timeframes. I'd like to think that we would at least have one structure plan completed this year, this calendar year, possibly more. But the other thing that we really need to do is, rather than have 4 structure plans split across 4 different consultants, we're obviously trying to keep it to one entity, and so they will start with one township and work through until we complete. But I would expect we'll have at least one structure plan completed this calendar year.
If they're sequential, how long do you imagine the 4 of them will take then?
It depends, councillor, on sorry, through you again, Madam Mayor, on some of the complexities around it. For example, some townships, there's going to have to be a significant focus on recreation space, and how that all works within the structure plan. Future growth on the peripheries, stuff like that. The consultation, there's a fair degree of consultation required, community consultation. So it's hard to put a time frame on a particular plan in terms of how long it would take, but it's a significant undertaking, and thankfully council has got funding to do it, which is something we didn't have at the beginning of the year.
And General Manager, if I may, councillor McQueenie and councillor Woods will remember this, when we did the original structure plans back whenever, some of them took six months to do with the consultation process that we went through, didn't they? So it will be and can be quite a long time frame to get it right, what the community wants.
Yep. Okay.
Anything else, councillor McQueenie?
No, thank
No.
you.
Councillor Luck?
Yeah, my question's to the General Manager through you, Madam Mayor. Environmental health, the caravan licence fees. My understanding is that we haven't been able to police that since 2019 because the environmental laws needed a rewrite. Has that been addressed or likely to be addressed in the near future?
Councillor Luck, through you, Madam Mayor, I'll have to take that on notice. I'm not sure, unless the planner knows anything about it in his role, but I'll take that on notice and get back to you. That's all right.
Thank you, because it's a shortfall of about $100,000 a year in revenue. It's quite significant.
It was originally a bylaw that
It
we
was
had. to
bylaw, but it
everybody
was
through that.
unpoliceable.
Yeah, I'm
So
not
it-
sure what
yeah.
the outcome
So the
is.
bylaw needs rewriting apparently, and there's a significant cost in rewriting it, but also there had been appetite to take it to government, and it was held up because of amalgamations and the usual story. But now that seems to be changing tact. I just wonder whether we shouldn't be getting this back into the system.
Yeah, because does have the potential to have a significant income
It
for,
does.
for council. So
And
yes,
quite an
so,
inequity at the moment, where we've got people who are doing the right thing and paying caravan licence fee, and around 80% are not. So it's something that needs to be addressed.
So General Manager, you'll take that on notice.
I will
and
take it on notice.
advice. Thank
Okay,
you.
Madam Mayor, can I just make one comment in
Okay.
regards to bylaws generally?
Yeah.
There's probably several bylaws that I can think of that just spring to mind that it would be nice if we had them in place, yeah, and some of them I think we should have in place, and this is probably one. The biggest challenge with bylaws, of course, is the organisation's ability to monitor and enforce those bylaws. So it's if we're going to have a bylaw in place, we've got to ensure that we have the capability of actually affecting that bylaw, if you know what I'm saying. So we're very mindful of that and trying to. I think this is a good example of a bylaw that we should have in place, but we also got to make sure that we can enforce it.
Councillor Woods?
You go.
Oh, Councillor Edwards, and then Councillor Woods?
Just on 25 under medical centres, the contracts and arrangements for the service are currently being worked through. How long is that likely to take? Because I would have thought that most of the arrangements and contracts were sorted out before the new provider was signed up for.
To you, Madam Mayor. So as per council's recommendation and decision at the last meeting, we have entered the negotiations with the preferred tenderer. There is not much work to do because a lot of the work, as you correctly point out, was done prior. It's a matter of ironing out some finer details, and I'm expecting a contract to be signed by middle of August.
And Councillor Edwards and Council, I do have a meeting with some representatives from CoHealth on Friday, and they were very pleased with the reaction that they've had from medical staff and the other staff in the medical centres across the municipal area since council's made this decision. So it's been very well received within the East Coast Health family, if you like.
Good.
Councillor Woods, thank you.
Thank you. On page 24, under animal control compliance, it says in the second paragraph, for the 2022-23 year, a total of 79 infringements were issued on animal control matters. The number for the 2021 year and 22 year was 13. That's quite a significant jump
Increase, yes.
in infringements. Is there more? Are there more dogs, or what's the go?
General Manager?
Through you, Madam Mayor, it relates more to the fact that we are being a lot more diligent out there in terms of dog control than we ever have been. Our officer is extremely active, getting up and down the municipality, and I don't believe it's because there's an increase in dogs or an increase in irresponsible dog owners, but more so the case that we are active. We are certainly still taking the approach that education is the key here, and information to dog owners is the key. We're not taking a hard-handed approach, but where there's second and third offences, we do take a harder approach than probably what's been taken in the past.
Thank
Councillor
you.
Young?
Oh,
I'm sorry, councillor Woods.
I hadn't finished.
I'm
I'm
sorry,
sorry. Oh,
councillor.
sorry.
I'm
No,
sorry,
no.
councillor Woods.
No, you go ahead.
Can you wait?
I think I can.
Sorry, councillor Woods.
No, that's all right. Councillor Edwards, asked a question there about the medical centres, but I just did want to make a comment on page 25, and that is in the second paragraph again. It just says this is a significant about the accreditation in Bigelow, and it says this is a significant task and the work of the practice manager, Bigelow staff and doctors should be commended. I'd like to publicly say from council, well done on that. And, it's good to see that Tribunal Practice is commencing their accreditation as well. Thank you. I'm done. Your turn.
Now, councillor Young.
Well, I have two questions. One follows councillor Wood's comment. I'd like to know who is filling in while Dr. Kelly is away, the name of the practitioner or system. Do we know?
Through you, Madam Mayor, we don't have a practitioner as yet, a name for you.
So
Yeah,
it's
but there will-
vacant at the minute.
Sorry?
While Dr. Kelly is away, there's no one there at the minute.
No, there will be cover. There will be cover arranged for the doctor's absence. He's gone for almost 2 months, so there does.
So there will be someone there.
Yes.
Locum, I think.
Thank
isn't
you.
it,
Yes.
Locum?
Yep.
Yes.
The second thing is about dogs. I'd just like to commend the attitude of our officer, Mr. Arnold, who handles these things. He's pleasant, he's charming, he can get results, whereas most people and some of the former officers in this council would have ended up in fights, and he just gets a result. He's to be commended. General Manager, would you please pass it on to him?
Through you, Madam Mayor, I'll
I
certainly
agree.
pass that on.
Yes, I think I certainly endorse councillor Young's words in relation to our compliance officer. He appears to be very diligent with his work, but also diplomatic with dog owners. I think that's got us some really good outcomes. So yes, he definitely deserves congratulations.
Thank you, councillors. I'll definitely pass that on.
Any other questions or comments, councillors? Nothing further. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? Motion's carried unanimously. Thank you. Agenda item 7.3 is a sound shell initiative for our park. There is a recommendation on page 29. Thank you, councillor Woods.
Thank you. I'll move that council notes the information and seeks a further report from the general manager on community feedback on the proposal.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Young, thank you. Councillor Woods, do you wish to make any further comment?
Yes, I do. Thank you. This has been mooted before, and I'm pretty sure it was the Spring Bay Lions Club that were looking at doing something very similar to this. So it can only be a good thing for the area.
When you
So I
consider,
wish them all the best.
when you consider how well the park is used around Christmas time and things like that, it is a really good initiative from the Rotary Club, I think. Councillor Young?
I have
Nothing?
nothing to
Oh,
say.
thank you. Councillor McQueenie, then councillor Edwards.
I agree with what councillor Wood says in terms of it being, and yourself, a great addition to Orford in terms of performance. I'm aware that there are other groups who are looking at potential uses of the park too, and I guess this was one of the reasons for the structure plan question, is that the consultation include potentially the opportunity to marry those things rather than to the one to exclude the other. So I look forward to consultation and the outcome of that, because I'm sure those folk will come forward.
Councillor Edwards.
No, I was just going to say I was going to back up Councillor Woods' comments. What a fantastic thing it would be.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor.
Through you, Madam Mayor, can I just ask the General Manager a question? Would that be the type of project that public open space contributions could be used towards?
Through you, Madam Mayor, yes, the short answer, absolutely. I think, given that you raised that, Deputy Mayor, it's worth mentioning that in Bicheno, a similar space, the Lions Park in Bicheno has competing interests for that space. And I must admit the BCDA have played a key role in this, but they've managed to get a consultative group around that has got all the stakeholders interested in that space. Children, mothers taking their children to play on the play equipment, the Bicheno Food and Wine Festival, Bicheno Beams, whatever the case may be, they've all got an interest in that space, and they're developing a plan that takes into account all those interests. The same will need to be done here at our park, so that we're not just, if we are going to have a sound show, and I agree with the comments that have been made, yeah, it is a good idea. We just need to make sure that it fits within that overall plan, and all interests are taken into account.
Thank you. Are there any other questions or comments? Councillor Woods, you wish to close?
Nothing.
Thank you. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? It's carried unanimously. Thank you. Agenda item 8.1 is local government reform. There is a recommendation on page 33. Councillor Churchill, thank you.
I move that the General Manager provides a further report on the completed community survey at the next council meeting. And 2, considering the complexity that Glamorgan Spring Bay has with options that include a possible north-south split, that a stage 2 response to the Local Government Review Board, due August 2nd, 2023, will be necessarily brief. And 3, the response will indicate that GSBC is willing to continue to engage with the Tasmanian Government and neighbouring councils to identify reforms that will meet the principles of the Local Government Review and be to the benefit of the communities concerned. And 4, that the Tasmanian Government be requested to fund and model any potential local government reform identified in point 3 above for consideration by council and community before any final decision is made.
Thank you, Councillor Churchill.
I'll second the motion.
Your second, Councillor Young, thank you. Mrs. Kerr will just put it on the screen for us, but I'm happy to take comments. Councillor Churchill, do you wish to speak to your motion at this point, or?
Yes,
Thank you. While Mrs. Kerr's preparing the motion for the screen, that would be good. Thank you.
Yeah, just have a few points that I want to make around this motion. Firstly, at this point in time, there really appears to have been little to no positive outcomes from the local government reform process. Now, with no forced amalgamations on the agenda, because they're politically unpalatable, I'm guessing, the goalposts are moved. No modelling has been done so that our communities have no idea of the impacts and consequences, positive or negative. Consider, for example, if a council with, say, $10 million of backlog, unbudgeted renewal is required for an essential council business like roads and footpaths, was to amalgamate with a council whose asset management has been excellent. Who's responsible for paying the costs? Where will the money come from? Which ratepayers or taxpayers will pay? We don't know any of this. The modelling is needed. We're told in very early stages of the review that many councils, approximately half, don't have current long-term financial management plans and asset management plans. Reading from the report of the second stage of the review, I just want to read a part of that out, if I may. The review panel have stated here, over the course of stage 2 of the review, the board has concluded that some structural reform to Tasmania's system of local government will be necessary to ensure councils can fulfil their current obligations and meet future community needs. Incremental or marginal changes will not deliver this capability improvement. The challenge will be to develop a model where consolidation and partnerships enhance the long-term capability of councils and the sustainability of services while strengthening local representation, governance and democracy. To this time, this to me is a whole lot of words. The modelling has not been done. It is very hard for us as councillors or for community to actually decide what is best for them. And I think this needs a lot of consideration. There's a lot more work to be done. And I don't think now that the goalposts have moved, that the timelines should remain as they are. Thank you.
Councillor Young?
Mayor, I read from page 6 of the summary of the second stage report came out from the Local Government Reform Board. And it's in support of part of the motion that Councillor Churchill hasn't specifically raised in his speech now. It says that the board will recommend any transition arrangements should be introduced over an extended period to smooth any financial impacts and avoid shocks at the individual ratepayer level. It's obvious that there are big finances involved in all this. I can see quite a number, but when I read the summary, I came to the conclusion that not only is there a shock to making a change, and there always will be a shock. If one council dissolves, all its employees and contractors that are disadvantaged by the dissolution will have a right for damages to make a claim against the successor for the loss of their contractual benefits, even if it means loss of notice. And, as we know now, that the question of notice is an important thing, but some will be liable for, some will be claiming for foregone profits, because you don't necessarily, if you're the successor to part of a council, automatically take on the liabilities that the dissolved council had. So some people will miss out on their benefits. But forgetting about that, to do what this motion suggests, and I think it's a wise motion, is going to cost. And we need government help. And the Local Government Board itself says as much. On page 6, I think it's item 4. I haven't got it on my screen now. We're asking the government to do at least what the board recommends that it should do. We should investigate it. Our ratepayers should have a chance to make a decision on the matter. I was at a meeting prior to this earlier on, and one of the gentlemen at the meeting said, I've read the local government reform. He said, much of the reform is not founded. You don't know how they've come to their conclusion. They're just bald statements of the conclusion, but you don't know of what. Now, they might be all good. They might not be. But we at least have to deal with our ratepayers, so you have an idea what they think, and that's why I support the motion.
Thank you. Are there any other comments? Councillor McQueenie?
Yeah, just that, excuse me, that given that the stage 2 deadline is 2nd of August. I don't think that there's any other possible robust response to give to local government, except that we need more information and we need to do more work in terms of our position, and particularly because we've yet to receive the survey data in full from what our community has said that we've done. So on that particular item, number 2, absolutely. Number 1, absolutely, in terms of receiving that report, and then the need to satisfy those who will wonder what our response is provided for in this motion. With no forced amalgamations, I think it's beholden on us to actually do this exploration work. There's no risk if we could choose not to support it in the future, and it provides the opportunity to get a really good understanding from the associated councils about what opportunities they see as well, because it's not just about finances. It's about potentially joining together to, you know, deal more effectively with parks and wildlife, those sorts of things. As and that absolutely, to me, it seems a no-brainer that we need financial support from the state government who's driving this agenda to support that important work. And from there, then we can make some serious decisions, as can the ratepayers.
I think the only thing to be considered for me is that we're currently on a timeline where we actually have to put a submission in by the 2nd of June. 2nd of August.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm assuming, and you might like to talk further about it, your motion.
I can just make a comment on that,
Yeah,
Madam Mayor, if I may.
Mm.
I think as Councillor Churchill said, the goalposts have shifted since the Premier's announcement. I don't think the time frame, and we're going to follow up on this, but I've been talking to my counterparts at 2 other councils, neighbouring councils. The time frame is of the essence right now. It's more about the community, the councils working together, talking to the communities and trying to, and keeping those communication channels open. I don't think that the time frame is something that we should be getting too hung up about.
But do we still have to put in a submission by the 2nd of August? I know we've got to
Yep.
appear before a hearing on the 28th of August.
Correct. So, Madam Mayor, so the survey closes tomorrow. We'll wrap up the Survey Monkey will wrap up the results, and
Yes.
we'll have a summary report. And I'll circulate that to councillors, and that can form the basis of our submission. And obviously, if you want to add any more comment, I think we can add that without having to have another formal meeting. But the survey, we've had significant response to the survey. I'm pleasantly surprised, about 170 as of just before the meeting. 170 in our community. That's fairly substantial, and quite distinctive trends we've had good coverage across the municipality in terms of location, all our townships. Our age demographic of those that have responded reflects what we already knew about our age demographic, but there's quite distinctive thoughts on, for example, the question about, do you support boundary adjustments? Now, I take on board what Councillor Churchill said, most of the community don't have detailed information to hand like we may have, and may not have their heads around all of this. But the simple question was, do you support boundary adjustments, i.e. the northern part of the municipality amalgamates with northern councils, the southern part amalgamates with southern councils? More than half of the people who have responded have responded yes to that question. The other half is split between no and I'm unsure. Same with a question about, if your council area was to increase, how do you think it could affect your access to your local councils? Most people, again, it's up around half, 50%, think that the access would remain the same. 27% think it would decrease, and 10% think it would increase. How important is access to your local councillors? Again, 50% of respondents have said somewhat important, and the balance have said it's split between not important at all and very important. So, you know, there's some clear anyway, this will all be wrapped up in a report and that'll inform our response. I think, Madam Mayor, if I may say this, I think in a way, we haven't had the resources to engage external consultants and undertake full-blown community consultation around this. In a way, I don't think that's a bad thing, particularly given the Premier's announcement. I'm not sure whether some monies have been well spent in that space, but we're on a position now to still keep those doors of communication open and ensure that the momentum that's already here is not lost, if you know what I mean, because there are significant opportunities here that we, as a council, we would be remiss to not pay attention to. So all we're trying to achieve with this report, and I note that Councillor Churchill's changed amendment, far better recommendation than mine was, but we're trying to keep that momentum going. And I think we'd be doing our community a disservice if we just had to close shop and say, sorry, we're not going to entertain any more discussion with you or any more discussion around amalgamation or reform generally. I don't think that's doing the best service.
I don't think that was ever the intention, General Manager, but certainly not from me. But one thing I will say is I would be disappointed if this council did not do a submission in the time frame that we have, that is by the 2nd of August, around the motion and the comments that have been done. And I think it needs to be, if I may, Councillor Young, it needs to be said up front. There seems to be a school of thought that I'm against amalgamation. No, I'm not against amalgamation. I am against the process that we've been asked to be involved in, because it is completely flawed in the way that we have to communicate this to our communities. It is flawed in that we were given some options, but if you don't like those options, talk to your neighbouring council and come up with something else. How can we give our community any reliable data around what the benefits are going to be for them in that situation? It really has been, in my view, a very flawed process.
An attempted manipulation.
Yes, Deputy Mayor.
I'd just like to say, I think it's a very good motion. Just going back to Councillor Young's comments, I think what further investigation will do will help inform the questions you're asking. So we're asking the questions before we have the answers. Hopefully the information we get will inform what you're asking and address those concerns. And I also think, just with regards to the Mayor's comments, that you're quite right about the process. It is now that the government has changed tact on it. It has actually made it easier for us to be able to deal with any reforms, because it was very confusing, the system they had and how we were going to communicate it. This will actually let us drive the narrative a little bit on it. And I just think it's a good opportunity for us as a council to see where the benefits might come from, and also as a council to be mindful that we can ask for perhaps what we want, what suits us better. We are now in the position to make some demands that will suit us.
Yeah.
After Councillor Queen's had, I'd like to make a suggestion.
And I was a little confused by a bit of that discussion in terms of, I thought the motion said the nature of the response and that it would occur by August 2. So I'm not sure what's envisaged, a necessarily brief one that talks to what's outlined in number 3, which is that we are willing and continue to engage with people now on the basis of the discussion, or something else. And I think for me, that points to the fact that I think probably one of the most critical things is a workshop for us and a process forward that we develop about how we take that forward.
Madam Mayor, sorry, this is not suggesting at all that we're going to be able to engage further with our communities, engage with neighbouring councils and everything by the 2nd of August.
Yeah.
We will use the information that we have to hand by the 2nd of August. In other words, a survey to submit a response. And then, but we're still going to have to continue with our talking to neighbouring councils and talking to our committee. That's the intention.
Councillor Young.
Madam Mayor, I concur with you that there should be a response within the current timeframe, but it should be stated clearly that it's qualified because of the deficiencies in the system, the change of the government's attitude about amalgamation, and then going to the point of the terms of the motion, should it be passed.
Councillor Edwards.
Yeah, I agree with Councillor Young and a lot of the comments around the table, that but also with the General Manager. We are in a prime position to move forward and to potentially get some great benefits for our ratepayers. But also, I was in some discussions last night with the mayor, with a couple of neighbouring councils. We just sit down and have a chat. And
If I may, I would just clarify, it was actually in a forum that wasn't to do with, wasn't local
a different
government
thing.
arranged.
But there's other councillors were there, and they all basically agreed with exactly what you said there.
Councillor Chisholm, I'll ask you to close debate, but if I may, before the comments being made that the Premier came out and said no forced amalgamations, and that's accurate. However, the media release that came with it, Minister Street actually said that the board would continue their discussions and provide recommendations by October around the boundary adjustments or what it's going to look like. So, and that affected councils would have the opportunity to put the matters to their communities. So whilst they've said on one hand they're not going to force amalgamations, I'm still a little bit confused about why the process is continuing and why we'll get all these recommendations around boundary adjustments and the like. Because yesterday we received a letter from the chair of the board that said that there would be no forced boundary adjustments. That's not exactly what the Premier said. And so it's again another indication of the conflicting information we've been receiving around this. And I really struggle with that. You know, on the one hand, the minister's saying one thing, and on the other hand, the board's saying something else. You know, the minister said, I don't have a problem with 29 councils if they can work through their sustainability. The board says, no, it's got to be, it's the status quo. The status quo cannot prevail.
Madam Mayor, are you saying you don't believe what the government said? Weasel word, what they say is fundamentally true. It's never incorrect. You can rely on it to the nth degree.
Thank
Ask
you,
them what
Councillor
they said.
Young.
Where's the dictionary? Work out what the hell the word is.
So I'm just a little bit confused about some of the information that's come out from the board. It is, in my view, quite conflicting to what some of the comments and media releases that have come out from the government. So that's where I'm kind of sitting in this rather mixed up situation at the moment. Councillor Woods.
I know, thank you, Mayor. I would know that.
No, that's all right. I'm happy to. It's a very important, it's an incredibly important discussion for our community and for this council to have.
Yeah.
So I'm happy for it to continue.
I'd like to just put my pen in. To me, it's just a rewrite of all the other times that we've gone through this process. The goalposts change periodically and all that sort of stuff, and nobody knows who's doing what and what's got to do who and all that sort of stuff. So just, it's all a lot of words. And I did put a note on the bottom of the recommendation that says, like the initial one that we were given, and council continues to engage with state government, neighbouring councils to identify reforms that will meet the principles of local government reform. And I just put a note that says that really means nothing, you know. So in my head at least. And in regards to what you were saying, Madam Mayor, about the letter from the board notes the view of some councils who are stridently opposed to any boundary reforms options. We would encourage you to present alternative reform options to the board at the hearings in these circumstances, or alternatively provide your feedback on the structural reform scenarios via a written submission. I mean, really, it's what a waste of money. What an absolute abject waste of taxpayers' money.
What a surprise.
And
I know.
and Councillor Woods, if I may, it's costing this council quite a significant amount of money to go through this process as well. And when, as you've rightfully identified, there are a number of reports that are not that old in some cases.
And if I may, Mayor, I just want to make this statement. I mean, I make these statements myself with regards to how I feel about it, and it's got nothing to do about self-interest for me as a councillor.
No,
it's got nothing to do about that at all. We are not here for ourselves. We're here for our communities, and I'm hearing not much at all from my community with regards to it. But anyway, that I've said enough.
I found it interesting that we were actually in one media release, we were some of the mayors were identified as trying to protect our empires. I thought, okay, someone explain an empire on the allowances that we are paid in a small rural council.
Yeah.
I think we've got too many cars and too many chauffeurs.
Look, I think,
So yes, Deputy Mayor.
I was just going to say, I think we can look at this as an opportunity, or we can take it as a negative. And I think aside from talking about all the waste of money and all the other things that come with it, we need to look at it as an opportunity and decide how best. And there has got to be a process, and they haven't got the process right. And I wouldn't like to be in charge of the process. It would be a very difficult process to put into place, and for all the complexities of it. And I think right now, this is the best spot we've been in to take a good hard look at it, and we should look at it positively.
Can I add, Madam Mayor, can I add to the Deputy Mayor's comment in regards to the opportunity? I think if we can get the funding, and I believe it will be available as per Councillor Churchill's recommendation on the screen, and under part 4 of that recommendation, we'll stand ourselves in a really good position. We're not one of the councils that have stridently, what was the word? Sorry, Councillor Wood, stridently opposed, whatever the words. We're not one of them, and it's good to be in this position that we can look at opportunities. I think if the government can do the modelling and pay for the modelling, we'll be able to go to our community and show very, very clearly show the positive, the pros and cons of the various aspects of reform. And it won't be a matter of reinventing the wheel, because they could go to the scenarios that have already been presented and do modelling around them and quickly come up with, well, not quickly, but come up with the pros and cons of each of those 5 scenarios that we have presented for our municipality. So, you know, I agree with what's been said in the room. It's an opportunity that we shouldn't miss out on.
Absolutely. So, Councillor Churchill, would you care to close debate on this matter now, or shall I put the motion?
I'd just like to make a couple of comments. Well, thanks everyone. I think there's a general consensus in the room, and thanks for support on that. But I think the General Manager has made one very good point. It's probably good that we weren't funded to do a whole lot of stuff earlier on around consultation, because everything was focused on those boundary changes for a long time. We could have put a lot of money and a lot of work and time and effort into something that is now gone. So hopefully funding from here on will be more targeted, and it'll be something that will more closely to relate to whatever comes out of all of this. And as many have said in the room, this is an opportunity, and we've got to look at it as an opportunity, whichever way it falls. And I think the Mayor's comments about the clarity on that, this boundary changes issue perhaps that could be a direct question to the board or to the minister to find out what they actually mean there, because I'm sure you're not the only one that is not clear on what's being meant around that issue. Thank you, and that's all I have to say.
Thank you, councillor Churchill. On that note, I will put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Agenda item 8.2 is a request for event support from the Great Eastern Wine Trail. There is a recommendation on page 36. Thank you.
I move the council provides an event grant of $1,000 to East Coast Wine Trail Association towards the 2023 East Coast Wine Trail Festival for promotion and marketing.
Seconded, Deputy Mayor. Thank you. Councillor Young, do you wish to speak
I
to the
don't
motion?
wish to speak to it, the thing speaks for itself.
Any other speakers? Deputy Mayor, do you wish to speak to the motion?
I'll just say it's a great event over a 2-week period in our municipality, and it certainly attracts a lot of visitors and creates a lot of economic advantage for our municipality.
Thank you. No other speakers? I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? Motion is carried unanimously. Thank you. Agenda item 8.3 is the Bicheno Wine and Food Festival event support. There is a recommendation on page 40. I note the Deputy Mayor has declared a perceived conflict of interest. Do I have a motion, please? Councillor Woods, thank you.
I move that council provides Bicheno Food and Wine Festival Association for the Bicheno Food and Wine Festival to be held on 18th of November 2023, the following grant funding and support. 1, the provision, delivery and collection of 12 rubbish bins with red lids and 12 recycle bins with yellow lids and bin liners for the event. And 2, the collection of any recyclable bags for disposal from the event location on Monday, the 20th of November 2023, and provision of lifting machine to transport these to the Bicheno Waste Transfer Station for recycling, and provide a $2,000 cash contribution towards the cost of waste management hire of a traffic controller to implement the road closures for the event.
Thank you. Is there a seconder, please? Councillor Churchill, thank you. Councillor Woods, do you wish to speak to the motion?
No, thank you, Mayor. It's pretty self-explanatory.
Any other speakers to the motion? Councillor McQueenie, comment?
More a question, if I may, Mayor. And it's not to do with this particular event, but I'm wondering what criteria or what analysis is given to where one application gets $1,000 in the way of support and another.
So can I just say, Councillor McQueenie, that's probably a question for the General Manager or Ms Blaine out of session, because it actually introduces new information into an agenda item, which we can't do at this point.
I just don't know how I make a decision about $2,000 for this.
General Manager, would you like it?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It's important, councillor, to note that there's no two events or two community groups, etc., that are the same. So it's not, there's certain basic criteria, absolutely, that people have to meet, and we've got it, but there's other factors that need to be considered as well that may mean that more consideration would be given to a certain event over another. So it's not like we have a set amount of, say, $2,000 that we give to each event applicant. We assess each on a case-by-case basis.
It's just, I would just say, in the interest of transparency, though, and the community understanding, that it's not clear what those factors that are used are as people prepare applications. Given we've got such a small amount and we're right at the beginning of the year.
We do have some guidelines around through you, Madam Mayor. We do have some guidelines around that. So one is, here we're talking about an event budget.
Mm-hmm.
The other one that council considers quite regularly is a community small grant budget. The community small grants have their own criteria. The events have their own criteria.
Yeah.
I'm happy to discuss those or give you copies of those.
Yeah, thank you. That would be good. Because we have a 2-week event getting $1,000 and a 1-day event getting $2,000. That's what left off the page for me.
Yeah,
Often if I may, as I understand it, General Manager, it is what the event actually applies for though, isn't it?
that is correct,
It's not
Madam Mayor.
necessary, we don't make the decision as
Yeah.
to how much.
Yeah.
It's what the event actually applies for. And then they have to meet certain assessment values around that Ms. Blaine does control, if you like, for want of a better term.
And
Is that accurate?
that is accurate, Madam Mayor, and they all different in their needs and their requests. Like a triathlon, for example, would require a significant amount of traffic control that we may be able to provide through in-kind support or whatever the case may be. They may not require, I'm just using an example, they may not require, for example, waste management, but they
Or
do.
buses to take them to the event.
Or all those sorts of things. All these events are different, and that's why we just try and assess them on their needs and their request within limitations, obviously. And I think the unwritten limitation that this council has agreed to is in the order of about $5,000. We have funded previous events up to $5,000.
And if I may, Councillor McQueenie, one thing that we do, or that has always been taken into consideration, is the economic injection into a town or a community that an event may bring. That's why we have the events budget and a community grant, small grant budget, rather than separate the two. Because some of these events do bring significant economic injection, particularly this particular one into the Bicheno community for hospitality and the like. So it is a particularly good event.
And let me say, it's not an objection to this.
No, I
application.
understand
It's
that.
trying to
Just
understand.
trying to understand the process. So I'm sure the General Manager would be more than happy to have a meeting with you out of session, or Ms. Blaine, to explain the process to you in relation to events versus community grant funding. Is that okay?
Yes,
Happy with that?
yes.
Lovely. Thank you. Thank you. Are there any other questions or comments in relation, Councillor Woods?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I've just picked up on something on in our attachments.
Right.
There doesn't seem to be an attachment for we've got the
bars.
No, we've got the East Coast Wine Trail, which is the one we've just done application, but there's not one for the Bicheno Food and Wine Festival.
Ms. Blaine, if I may, the events are done not through the same sort of process though, aren't they? They're actually applied through a different process. Yet there isn't a form to be completed, is there, for events? That's correct. That's correct. So I think it's by direct involvement with the General Manager and Ms. Blaine, and then we get our Section 65 report.
So we've got, I'm
I'm
just trying to be a little bit cognizant, but the previous one that we've just supported provides an event grant of up to $1,000 to the East Coast Wine Trail Association. This one is the event grant funding and support. So it's grant funding and support. So they're both of event grants, and yet we've got the East Coast Wine Trail Association application form, but we don't have the one for the Bicheno Food and Wine Festival Association.
Except, Councillor Woods, if I may, Ms. Blaine will correct me. I think the East Coast Wine Trail applied through the Community Small Grants application process, and it was better suited under the events funding. So that's how it's gone into events funding rather than take that money out of the community small grants funding.
Both of them, but the Great East Wine Trail is for event support as well.
Yes.
Same thing, same funding
Okay.
pocket.
I think to you, Madam Mayor, I think that's a matter of just that form being missed out of the agenda, to be
Okay.
honest. I stand
Mm.
corrected, but I think there should be councillor Woods raises a valid question. I think there should be a similar form for both the Bichno Food and Wine Festival and the East Coast Wine Trail.
Because they're request for event support.
Yeah.
Whereas the next one we've got coming from small grants.
Yep,
application.
you're right. That's a different, the next one is a different bucket of money, so to speak. It doesn't change the
No, no.
context of the report, but it's a fair comment, councillor.
Thank you.
And
Councillor
I'll be
Woods.
honest and say, I didn't actually pick that up because I was looking at it under a different application process that I wasn't sure
Yep.
whether there was a form that actually existed for it, but anyway.
They would have had to, through you, Madam Mayor, they definitely would have had to go through the same
Same
process.
Yeah, yeah,
There's
yeah.
no favours or
Yeah.
given to any
No.
any particular.
And it's what
one.
they actually asked
Yep.
for.
But I think if I may, General Manager taking on board councillor McQueenie's comments and now councillor Woods probably need to just be aware of what a process could be for events funding that makes it a little bit clearer and transparent perhaps. Yes,
That being said, I've closed.
thank you. Oh, councillor.
Oh, sorry, I haven't closed.
Councillor Churchill.
I just want to make a comment, just from the point of view of reporting, especially on these ones that we're repeating each year.
Mm.
If we could just get some sort of an idea of what has been granted to them in previous years,
Mm.
and then we can start to
Mm.
make a decision about how these should operate over time, whether they should, they could, in my head, go either way. They could increase over time if we can see the value in that, or as the event matures, we might say, well, it's standing on its own 2 feet now, it's charging enough to, and we can move that money on to somewhere else. I just think that little bit of extra reporting might be, it would be useful for me anyway to make my decision. Thank you. I support the
you.
event. Thank you.
Thank you, councillors. If
Sorry-
there- yes.
Sorry, Madam Mayor, if I may just make a comment. The report writer did provide some information which came on late, but I'm happy to just provide council with the information. So there is information provided around the Bichno Food and Wine Festival, the ticket prices,
How much?
and the East Coast Trail. And that obviously was part of the consideration as well. Can I repeat you want me to repeat the ticket prices? No.
Oh,
I
no, there's no-
No, there's
All
no,
right,
there's
so
no problem
if
with
there
that.
is-
Public information. It's on the website.
If
Yeah.
there is nothing further, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against, the motion is carried unanimously. Thank you. Ms. Blaine, I wonder if you'd be kind enough to tell Deputy, councillor Edwards is going to tell Deputy Mayor. Come back. Thank you, Deputy Mayor. The matter was unanimously agreed to. Thank you. Agenda item 8.4 is community small grant application, which is for Erdo, the East Coast Regional Development. There is a recommendation on page 43. Thank you, councillor Young.
Madam Mayor, I move that council approve the application for community small grant funding of $1,000 to East Coast Regional Development Association, Inc. to support the Art Hub workshop.
Could I just clarify, councillor, it's actually East Coast Regional Development Organisation, not association. I think you may have said association.
sorry.
Association.
Often you say what you think has been.
That's all right.
written, and it's
Can I have a
not-
second?
I'm not organisation. I
Can I
apologise.
have a seconder, please?
Thank you for picking me up.
Thank you, councillor Woods. Thank you. Councillor Young, do you wish to speak to the motion?
Well, just that the East Coast Regional Development Organisation does a very good job running the village. It does attract a lot of people when there are certain sorts of workshops at exhibitions
Mhm.
to the tune of sometimes hundreds of people. And it is a source of interest to tourists as well as locals alike, and I commend
Yes,
the motion.
yes, indeed. Any other comments? Any other questions? I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? It's carried unanimously. Thank you. Agenda item 8.5 is the community small grant application for Spring Bay Yoga. Councillor Woods, thank you.
I'll move that council approve the application for small community, I'll start again. I'll move that council approve the application for community small grant funding of $1,000 to Spring Bay Yoga for its installation of the ballet bars, not the bar that you alluded to.
Bar is spelled B-A-R-R-E.
Yes,
As opposed to the some, you put your elbow and have a beer on a hot day.
in the Tribana Community Hall.
Do I have a seconder, please? Councillor McQueenie, thank you. Councillor Woods, do you wish to speak to the motion?
Look, it's pretty self-explanatory, and I do support what they do down there, even though I don't do yoga and or ballet.
Most we can.
Are there any other
I
questions?
don't think there'd be any more danger.
Thank you, councillor Young. Any other questions or comments? I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against, the motion's carried unanimously. Thank you.
Perhaps, Madam, where we could get the minute secretary just to correct the spelling mistake.
Yeah.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you. Agenda item 9, there are no notices of motion. There are no petitions at agenda item 10. There are no questions on notice by councillors at agenda item 11.1. Are there any comments or statements by councillors at 11.2? Councillor Woods, thank you.
Mayor, just a request, probably if that can come under statements or comments.
Mhm.
Can we have the guidelines of the Section 24 Committee of Councils that we had done? Can we put that on a workshop, please, for review? They were done in 2015 and they really sort of need looking at. If we could pop that
Sure, we
into
can.
a workshop agenda, that'd be great. That's all.
Thank you very much.
I have also.
Councillor McQueenie.
Just a quick comment, and that is for those who may be listening as well as those around the table, that the Department of Health has just opened a grant round for things to do with health and wellbeing in the community. $1,000 minimum, so it's an opportunity, and because it's health and wellbeing and it's not clinical in its nature, it means all sorts of opportunities.
Thank you.
What sort of opportunity? I don't understand.
A funding round, grant round.
Oh, I see,
yeah.
money from government,
Yeah,
taxpayer,
As
to do what?
to things that promote health and wellbeing in the community.
I understand it, councillor McQueenie, the walking club, for example, could apply for a grant for
Absolutely.
their activities
Yeah.
because it is promoting health and wellbeing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you.
Up for councillor Wood.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
Lucky
yes,
about it
exactly.
too,
Are there any
Another one
other
there.
comments by
Yeah.
councillors? Yes, councillor Young.
I was approached today about the question of proliferation of weeds in the community. There are a number of noxious weeds that are on the move here, and Mr. Porch, our director, is not here, but General Manager, I'd like you to raise the issue with him to have someone look at some of the matters that have been complained about. I think one of them is gorse, and the other one is Spanish
Heath.
and once they get a hold of someone's property, they're very difficult to get rid of, and they have a habit of migrating next door if the wind blows, and it probably needs a bit of attention to unfortunately spray. As long as I'm not spraying, I think spraying's a good idea.
There was a time when this council had a very good reputation for control of those weeds, but
They're on the
unfortunately
march.
not in recent times. Thank you. I'm sure the general manager will take it on board. Councillor Edwards?
Just to add to councillor Young's comments with the loss of
The
Amanda
NRM,
Brooks,
the
it's
NRM
gonna
group.
get
Yes,
a hell of a lot worse.
thank you. No further comments or questions? Agenda item 12 is the confidential session. There is a motion, or there is a recommendation. Can I have a motion, please? Councillor Woods, thank you.
Thank you. I'll move that. Closed session at 3:26 PM.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder, please? Deputy Mayor, thank you for noting that there is now an agenda item, an extra agenda item in the closed session. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? Motion's carried unanimously. Thank you. Mrs. Kerr, if you would just let us know